Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something I think many really sharp and driven people grapple with, self-doubt. We'll look at why even folks with talent and, motivation can get stuck, maybe procrastinating or even tripping themselves up right before they succeed.
Yeah, or hitting that sort of invisible ceiling they just can't seem to push past a certain point.
Exactly.
And it's a real puzzle, isn't it? Because we often think, well, it must be about lack of opportunity or, resources. That's got to be the biggest hurdle.
Right, the obvious stuff.
But then you see these really capable individuals, lots going for them, who still don't quite hit their potential. And on the flip side, you have these incredible stories, right? Like Colonel Sanders starting KFC so late after, hundreds of rejections?
Yeah, amazing story.
Or Oprah coming from such poverty, Helen Keller's achievements. I mean, just extraordinary. Even Einstein, apparently he was kind of slow off the mark academically.
Right, so it really makes you wonder, what are the real roadblocks then, if it's not just the external stuff?
Exactly. And you start to see, okay, maybe it's not just about what's outside us, but what's going on inside in our own heads.
You mean like our basic wiring?
Well, yeah, in a way. Our nervous system, fundamentally, it loves comfort. It wants what's familiar, what's easy, keeps us safe, evolutionary speaking.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then there's this other part of us, this like innate human drive to grow, to see what we're capable of, push the boundaries.
So there's a tension there. Safety versus growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A constant push and pull, wanting to stay safe in the comfort zone versus wanting to step out. And that internal friction, that's often where the frustration comes in. That feeling of, like you said, just spinning your wheels.
Right. The hamster wheel of mediocrity, as some might call it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And managing that tension, that internal conflict, that's really key. So that's our mission today, really. Let's dig into where self-doubt actually comes from.
Okay.
And more importantly, figure out some, practical things we can actually do about it based on how our brains work and this powerful unconscious mind we all have.
All right, let's start with the brain development piece. You mentioned the front part of the brain, the frontal lobe.
Yeah, the neocortex or frontal lobe, that's the bit responsible for like critical thinking, planning, rational thought.
Yeah.
It operates with these faster brain waves, alpha and beta, when we're focused and analytical. And that part really comes online, matures around age 7.
Age 7, okay. So what's happening before then?
Well, before 7, kids are mostly operating in different brainwave states, particularly theta. Theta is more like, think dreamy, imaginative, like when you're drifting off to sleep or in deep meditation.
Right, like fantasy land almost.
Exactly. They live in this world of make-believe. And crucially, they're incredibly receptive, highly impressionable. They're just soaking everything up from their environment like little sponges, but without the same kind of critical filter an adult has.
Which really makes that old Aristotle quote, give me the child for 7 years and I will give you the man, bit differently, doesn't it?
It really does. Those first 7 years are profoundly formative. They lay down so much of the groundwork for our beliefs about ourselves and the world.
So how does that translate into these negative self-beliefs we're talking about? Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's take a simple everyday kind of scenario. Imagine a little kid, maybe 4 or 5. Let's call him Johnny. He's at the supermarket checkout with his dad.
Okay, the dreaded checkout aisle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Dad's had a terrible day. Stress from work, maybe worried about bills, maybe he argued with his partner, adult stuff.
Stuff Johnny has no clue about.
Not at all. But what Johnny does see is that shiny toy car placed right at his eye level. Classic checkout strategy.
Yep, knows it well.
So Johnny asks for the toy. Daddy, can I have the car, please? Maybe he keeps asking. And Dad, just completely wrapped up in his own stress and frustration, snaps.
Oh, boy.
He might yell, "No, put it back. You can't just have everything you want. You don't deserve it. You're not good enough."
Okay.
Something like that.
Ouch. But Dad probably just thinks he's setting a boundary, right? Or just trying to get him to be quiet.
Probably. From Dad's perspective, it's about the situation, his own stress. But Johnny, he doesn't have the capacity to understand Dad's internal state.
So what does he hear?
What he internalizes, what gets programmed in, is the feeling behind the words, "I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm undeserving." Because for a child that young, a parent's word is gospel, and it's all about him.
Wow. And that just sticks.
It absolutely can. These moments, even seemingly small ones, plant these unconscious beliefs. Beliefs formed based on a child's interpretation of whether they felt loved or accepted in that moment. And these beliefs can then dictate behavior for decades.
Leading to things like self-sabotage later on.
Precisely. Because if you achieve success, it might conflict with that deep, hidden belief of I'm not worthy. So the unconscious mind, trying to maintain consistency with its model of the world, might subtly steer you towards failure to keep things aligned with that old program.
So a key takeaway here is like your current self-doubt might just be an echo from way back then.
It very well could be an outdated program still running. Recognizing that possibility is a huge first step towards actually rewriting it.
It's like the unconscious mind prefers the familiar pain over unfamiliar success sometimes.
That's a good way to put it. It seeks consistency. And this ties into something pretty profound, what some people call the undisputed first law of personal growth.
Okay, what's that?
It's simply this. You will never consistently rise above the opinion you hold of yourself.
Wow, you'll never rise higher than your own self-opinion.
Exactly. That internal ceiling we set for ourselves, often based on those early feelings of worthiness or unworthiness, love or lack of love, becomes the limit. It's very similar to what people sometimes call the first law of relationships, too.
Which is?
That you can never accept more love from someone else than you have for yourself. Your own self-love sets the upper limit for how much love you can truly let in.
Okay, that's deep. So these early beliefs set the ceiling. Now, how do habits fit into this? You mentioned the unconscious mind.
Right. So think about that powerful frontal lobe, our conscious thinking brain. It's amazing, but it's an energy hog. Uses a huge percentage of our daily calories just thinking and deciding.
Yeah, thinking is hard work.
It really is. So to be efficient, to conserve energy, the brain creates shortcuts. When we do something repeatedly, make the same choice over and over, like always reaching for the fries instead of the salad, maybe.
Guilty.
Well, eventually, the brain says, okay, I don't need the CEO, the frontal lobe, to weigh in on this every single time. And it hands that decision over to a more automatic part of the brain, the midbrain.
So it becomes a habit, an unconscious program.
Exactly. It runs on autopilot. It's like your brain trying to save battery life. We've all had those moments, right? You drive your usual commute and suddenly you're at work, but you barely remember the actual drive.
Oh, totally. Or pulling into the office parking lot on a Saturday morning out of habit.
Yes. That's your midbrain running the show. And here's the staggering part. Estimates suggest that our conscious, deliberate decision-making, that frontal lobe activity, that might only account for about 5% of our daily brain activity.
Only 5%.
Maybe even less for some things. The other 95%, that's the unconscious mind, running all those habits, ingrained beliefs, automatic responses.
Wow. So 95% is running on autopilot based on past programming.
Pretty much. Think of it like this. Your conscious mind, with all its goals and intentions, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to finish this project, that's like a tiny, determined ant marching north.
Okay.
But it's marching on the back of a massive elephant. Your unconscious mind, which might, because of old programming and limiting beliefs, actually be heading south.
Oh, dear. The ant doesn't stand much chance against the elephant.
Not without a lot of sustained effort, or unless it can somehow persuade the elephant to change direction. It really shows why just relying on willpower often fails in the long run. Lasting change isn't just about the 5%. It's about engaging and reprogramming that huge 95%.
Okay, that ant and elephant analogy is powerful. What about the compass needle? You mentioned that too.
Right. Another way to visualize it. Think of your mind like a compass needle. That 5% of conscious awareness, when you're really paying attention, you can grab that needle and point it anywhere you want.
Like choosing to feel positive?
Yeah, or deciding to focus on a task, or choosing to react calmly instead of angrily. If you're feeling down, you consciously decide, okay, I'm going to put on some upbeat music, or I'll call a friend. You're grabbing the needle.
Got it.
But the moment you stop making that conscious effort, the moment your attention drifts, where did the needle go?
It snaps back.
It drifts back to its default setting, its magnetic north. And the problem is, for many of us, thanks to that early programming, negative experiences, maybe societal messages, that default magnetic north tends to be tilted towards the negative, towards self-doubt, worry, criticism.
So it takes constant effort just to keep it pointed in a positive direction. Otherwise, it defaults back to the old pattern.
That's often the case, yes. Until you fundamentally change where that magnetic north is set.
Which leads us to the environment. You said that plays a huge role.
A massive role. There's a saying, environment trumps will. And it really holds true over time. Your best intentions can get worn down by what's constantly around you.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay. Imagine someone who genuinely dislikes, say, jazz music. They just don't connect with it.
Okay.
But maybe their neighbor plays jazz loudly every single evening while they're trying to relax. Or maybe they carpool with someone who only listens to jazz. Day after day, they're exposed to it.
Right.
After weeks or months, even though they never consciously decided to like jazz, they might find themselves humming a tune, maybe even tapping their foot. The constant exposure starts to reprogram their response.
So we're always being programmed whether we like it or not.
Constantly. By the people we're around, the media we consume, the physical spaces we're in. The choice isn't whether we get programmed. It's how and by what. Are we consciously choosing positive programming or just passively absorbing whatever's around us?
It's like trying to stay warm in a giant freezer just by willing yourself to be warm.
Exactly. You can have the strongest intention, wear your best mental sweater, but if you stay in the freezer long enough, the environment's going to win. You're going to get cold.
And that applies to negative people too, I guess.
Absolutely. If you live with someone or work closely with someone who's constantly critical, pessimistic, complaining, even if you consciously disagree with them, day after day of hearing that negativity, it starts to seep in. You might start internalizing those beliefs about yourself or the world without even realizing it.
That's kind of scary.
It highlights the power of our surroundings. And this links to another concept, sometimes called the law of conformity or the 95% rule. Basically, it suggests that we tend to become like the average of the people we spend the most time with. If you hang out primarily with negative, cynical people, guess what? The odds are high you'll become more negative and cynical yourself.
And the opposite is true too.
Yes. Surround yourself with positive, motivated, supportive people, and you're much more likely to adopt those attitudes and behaviors yourself. We're social creatures. We adapt and conform.
Okay, so we've got early childhood programming, creating beliefs, the unconscious mind, running habits on autopilot, often based on those beliefs, and our environment constantly influencing us. It sounds like a setup for self-doubt.
It can definitely feel that way. But understanding these mechanisms is the key to changing them.
Right, so let's get practical. Given all this, what can we actually do to start shifting things, to overcome self-doubt and reset those defaults?
Okay, so I think we can break it down to 3 core strategies. Simple, but not necessarily easy. First one, stop putting the wrong things in.
Stop putting the wrong things in. Meaning,
be really conscious about what you're feeding your mind. We just talked about how environment programs us. Well, what are the biggest inputs into our mental environment?
the news,
Right.
social media, the people around us.
Exactly. And let's take mainstream media first. Its primary goal, generally speaking, isn't objective, balanced reporting designed to make you feel good. It's often designed to capture and hold your attention.
And what captures attention?
Fear, outrage, drama. It stimulates the amygdala, our brain's fear center. That keeps us glued, which is good for ratings and advertising, but it constantly floods our system with negativity and anxiety.
So consuming a lot of news is like mental junk food.
It can be, absolutely. It's like trying to get physically healthy while smoking 3 packs a day. They're working against each other. You can't marinate your mind in fear and negativity and expect your default state to be calm and confident.
So the actionable step is?
Drastically limit, or even better, eliminate your consumption of mainstream news. Seriously, go on a news diet. Focus less on what's going on in the world over which you have very little control, and focus much more on what's going on in your world, what you actually can influence.
That makes sense. It shifts the focus back to personal agency. What about the people part? Negative family members can be tricky.
Very tricky. It's often the hardest part. You can't always just cut family off. The advice often given here, and it takes courage, is love your family, choose your friends. Meaning maintain respectful boundaries. Love them for who they are, but consciously choose to spend the majority of your discretionary time with people who uplift you, who support your goals, who reflect the kind of person you want to become. Don't let habitual obligation keep you steeped in negativity.
Okay, so step 1, stop putting the wrong stuff in news, negative influences. What's step 2?
Step 2 is the flip side. Start putting the right things in.
Makes sense. Replace the bad with the good.
Precisely. And we live in an incredible era for this. There is an absolute abundance of positive, inspiring, educational content available, much of it for free.
Like podcasts? Hopefully like this one.
Hopefully. Podcasts, interviews with successful people, audiobooks, biographies, documentaries, online courses. The list is endless.
So it's about actively seeking out things that support your growth.
Yes. Make it a deliberate practice. Find content that resonates with your goals, that teaches you useful things, that inspires you, that reinforces positive beliefs about what's possible for you. This is how you actively start to remagnetize that compass needle we talked about. You're consciously feeding your mind positive input to build a new default setting.
It's like choosing your own programming instead of just letting the environment do it passively.
Exactly. Take control of the narrative. Decide you're going to be the star of your own movie, not just, a background extra drifting through scenes someone else created. Actively choose the soundtrack, the script, the influences.
I like that. Be the star of your own movie. Okay, so stop wrong. Start right. What's the third strategy?
The third one is maybe the deepest. Get the things that shouldn't be in there, O-U-T.
Get the bad stuff out. How do we do that? Is that about dealing with those old childhood programs?
That's exactly what it's about. It's about identifying and releasing those limiting beliefs and unresolved emotional patterns from the past that are still running the show in that 95% unconscious.
And how does one go about doing that? That sounds complicated.
It often requires help. This is where working with a skilled mentor, a therapist, or a coach can be incredibly valuable. Someone who is trained not just to teach you new skills, but to help you see and unwind the unconscious patterns that are holding you back.
So it's not just about learning time management, for instance.
Right. Someone might come asking for help with time management because they're always overcommitted and stressed. A surface-level approach gives them scheduling tools, but a deeper approach might uncover that the reason they overcommit is an unconscious fear of rejection or a need to please everyone stemming from those early experiences. Until you address that root cause, the time management tools are just Band-Aids.
I see. So the coach or mentor helps you see the blind spots, the unconscious drivers.
Exactly. They help you access and reprogram that 95%. By addressing the old negative programming and consciously installing new positive habits and beliefs, step 2, you start to get the conscious 5% and the unconscious 95% pulling in the same direction.
Instead of the ant fighting the elephant.
Precisely. You get the whole system aligned and moving towards your desired goals. That's where real momentum comes from.
Okay, so those are the 3 big strategies. Stop putting the wrong stuff in, start putting the right stuff in, and get the old jink out, possibly with help. What's the ultimate aim here? What does this lead to?
Ultimately, this is all about moving towards self-mastery.
Self-mastery, what does that mean in this context?
It means gaining conscious awareness and influence over your own inner world, your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, your habits. It's the foundation for real, sustainable achievement and, just as importantly, for navigating life's inevitable challenges and uncertainties with more grace and resilience.
Like being the calm center in a storm.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The world outside might be chaotic, things might not go to plan, but if you have that inner stability, that self-mastery, you can remain centered, you can respond thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically based on old programming.
So maybe focus on this before chasing the next external skill or workshop.
I firmly believe so. Building that internal foundation of self-awareness and self-regulation is paramount. External skills are valuable, absolutely, but they're much more effective when built on a solid inner platform. Otherwise, self-doubt can sabotage even the best skills.
Makes sense. Build the foundation first.
Right. When you commit to that path of self-mastery, you give yourself the best possible chance of becoming the person you're capable of being. And interestingly, when you focus on mastering yourself, you naturally start to inspire others.
How so?
By example, people see the change in you, your resilience, your confidence, your effectiveness. It becomes a living demonstration of what's possible. It really echoes that famous Gandhi sentiment, doesn't it? Be the change you wish to see in the world. Start with yourself.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, it feels like the big message is that understanding this hidden world, the unconscious programming, the environmental influence, isn't just interesting theory, it's incredibly empowering.
Absolutely. It gives you the keys to unlock potential that might have been held back for years by invisible forces.
So maybe a good takeaway for everyone listening is to take a moment, reflect. What is the default magnetic north of your own mind right now? Is it generally positive or leaning negative?
That's a great reflection point. And based on that, what's just one small concrete thing you could do today to start applying that first strategy? Stop putting the wrong things in. Maybe it's skipping the news tonight or unfollowing a negative account online.
Yeah, just one small step. And here's a final thought to maybe noodle on. If it's true that your unconscious mind has largely been running on autopilot based on programming you absorbed before you could even critically think, what incredible potential, what amazing possibilities might be waiting to be unleashed if you consciously decide to take the controls now?
It's a powerful question indeed. What could you create if you were truly steering the ship?
Definitely something to think about as you continue your own journey of growth.